Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wolf Pit with another episode of What Are We Eating? Stouffer's lasagna has been around for years and I've had it many times. And I remember years and years ago, it was very good. But unlike a fine wine, Stouffer's lasagna has not gotten better with time. I remember it tasted and actually had the consistency of real homemade lasagna. But the few recent times I've tried Stouffer's lasagna, it's been more like tomato soup with pasta and cheese in it. Very runny and nothing to write home about. But there is one thing that I was never dissatisfied with Stouffer's lasagna, and that's the amount of meat. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but I always thought there was a sufficient amount of meat. So that was the one good thing. It was tomato soup with noodles, cheese, and a good amount of meat. What more could you ask for? Well, if you were one of those people that was dissatisfied with the amount of meat in Stouffer's lasagna, fear no more. Now, the only Stouffer's lasagna with meat and sauce you can buy has 2 times the meat. But if you read closely underneath the 2 times the meat, it says it's required by the lasagna with meat sauce standard. What in the heck does that mean? So Stouffer's didn't go out on their own to be nice to you, the people, by adding 2 times the meat. They were required to add 2 times the meat. So with that being said, they were never giving us the sufficient amount of meat in our lasagna with meat sauce. So they were ripping us off. Now who's going to start a class action lawsuit to be reimbursed for all the meat we missed in the Stouffer's lasagna we've been eating over the years? So I guess now there's a standard amount of meat you have to have in lasagna to call it lasagna with meat sauce. That makes no sense, but okay. Well, if you think that's crazy, what do you think about plant-based, meatless lasagna? Yes, you heard me correctly. And I'm going to go into this with an open mind, and I'm not going to bash it until I try it, and I'm not going to bash anyone who likes this type of product, whether I like it or not. Like I always say, eat what you like, because after all, you have to like what you're eating. So let's first start by going over the Stouffer's lasagna that is most familiar to us. The Stouffer's lasagna with meat and sauce, which is made with 100% pure beef, herb-seasoned tomato sauce, and real mozzarella cheese, and no preservatives, and 2 times the meat. This 10.5-ounce meal costs $2.78. Here's the list of ingredients. The serving size is the whole container, which has 370 calories, 13 grams of total fat, 6 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 40 milligrams of cholesterol, 900 milligrams of sodium, 42 grams of carbohydrates, 3 grams of fiber, 7 grams of sugars, and 21 grams of protein. Now let's go over the Stouffer's new plant-based protein meatless lasagna, which is made with Sweet Earth Awesome Grounds plant-based protein, herb-seasoned tomato sauce, and part-skim mozzarella cheese. This 10.5-ounce meal costs $3.79, $1 more than the meat version. Here's the ingredients. The serving size is the whole container, which has 380 calories, 12 grams of total fat, 7 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 25 milligrams of cholesterol, 1,200 milligrams of sodium, 47 grams of carbohydrates, 5 grams of fiber, 8 grams of sugars, and 22 grams of protein. Now Mrs. Wolfpit made me leave the room and cut off the camera while she took these out of the boxes, so that you, the people, and myself didn't know which one was which. And then she heated the double meat and the meatless lasagnas in the microwave according to the instructions. And you'll have to take my word for it, but before we tried these, I did blindfold myself. I wanted to know if I could tell the difference between real meat and plant-based protein. Obviously, I'm able to see them now on camera after the fact. And to be honest, neither looks bad. One just looks like it either has more noodles and less sauce, and the other looks like it may have less noodles and more sauce. So Mrs. Wolfpit got a spoon and went in and got a big old bite. And again, you got to remember, I'm blindfolded, so I cannot see whatever one she's cutting. And once she was able to finally get a spoonful, as I'm seeing it now, it didn't look too bad. But then she put it into my pie hole, and down my gullet it went. And here's my response. That wasn't good, whatever it was. And like I said, the first bite was not good. But the funny thing is, I could not tell if it was beef or plant-based protein. But whatever it was, just wasn't very tasty. So next, Mrs. Wolfpit dug into the second lasagna. And again, from what I'm seeing now, unblindfolded, it doesn't look bad. And now once it's on the spoon and I can see it, it looked like a Chef Boyardee ravioli. But it does appear to be a little bit soupier than the first one. So into the old pie hole, and down the gullet it went. And again, here's my response. The second one's meat. I really had no idea if it was meat or not. I just thought it tasted a little bit better. So while I'm still blindfolded, Mrs. Wolfpit gave me a couple more bites. And this bite turned totally different. And the noodles were one part of that. The noodles seemed thicker, but really gummy. And I did not notice in the previous two bites I'd already tried between the two. And there was a different aftertaste to this lasagna. But whatever bite that was, I still couldn't discern whether it was meat or vegetable-based protein. So Mrs. Wolfpit got a spoonful for my fourth and final bite while I'm blindfolded. This bite, the noodles were better, and the flavor was somewhat better, and I at least thought I could certainly tell it was the meat lasagna. So we took the blindfold off and took a few more bites. But now I was really confused because the lasagna on the left tasted like it had meat gristle in it, which really threw me off because before, the one on the right, I swore was meat. So at this point, I'm honestly up in the air and don't know what's what. The one on the left originally had a weird aftertaste, and it still did on the second and third bite. But it also looks like it has a lot more pasta. The one on the right looks like it has a lot less pasta. It did taste a little bit better, and it had more sauce. So at this point, I am thoroughly confused. I obviously don't know which one is which. I do know the one on the right tasted a little bit better, but like I said before, it's soupier, and it seems to have a lot less noodles, and the container is also smaller. So you guys know me, the big spender I am. I bought two of each lasagna, so I could do one in the microwave and one in the oven. Spending the extra money to buy two more, it's a small price to pay for you, the people's happiness. And then she cooked both of them in the oven per the instructions. So again, just like with the microwave lasagnas, I'm blindfolded again because I truly want to know if I can tell the difference between real meat and plant-based meat. Now that I'm unblindfolded, editing the video, just like the microwave version, they look like two different meals. One seems to have a lot more pasta with a decent amount of sauce, but the other one appears to be nothing but sauce and cheese. So Mrs. Wolfpit got her scooping device and scooped out a bite of the one on the left. And remember, in real time while we were doing the video, I can't see what is what. But I can now, and that seems to look like a decent lasagna. So as usual, into the old pie hole and down the gullet it went. And real quick, let me take a break to discuss one thing. I get a lot of comments about pie hole being a derogatory remark. And this is just simply coming from people that don't understand what it means. And pie hole is not a derogatory remark. It's simply a different name for your mouth. It's nothing sexual or derogatory. So when I say pie hole, I just mean my big mouth. So the first bite of the lasagna on the left, it wasn't horrible, but again, the noodles just seem off. They're just super gummy. The initial flavor isn't bad, but then you get a weird aftertaste. I did like the consistency of the one on the left. It was like a well put together lasagna with actual layers. As you can see, it's much different than the one on the right. The one on the right, which is how I described in the beginning of the video. The Stouffer's lasagna I've had lately has just been like soup, which is how the one on the right is. The one on the right does have a little bit better flavor, but it's just a mess. To me, it's no different than the Chef Boyardee lasagna in a can. So Mrs. Wolfpit and I both took a couple more bites, and to be perfectly honest, I couldn't really tell which one was the meat. I simply guessed that the one on the right was the meat because it was more familiar to the Stouffer's lasagna I've had recently. And the one on the left was much different texture-wise with the noodles, and the weird aftertaste I assume was the plant-based protein. And I was correct. Both the microwave and the oven versions were on the left, which were the plant-based protein lasagnas. But it was a lucky guess. The bottom line, in my opinion, is Stouffer's products have gone downhill over the years and have finally hit rock bottom. And these two meals are a good example. Stouffer's lasagna used to be really, really good. Now it's really, really bad. Stouffer's can't even get one of their flagship meals right anymore, and they're trying to come out with a new product. Fix Stouffer's original lasagna first, and then come out with a new meal. But I do have to say, this is kind of a win for the plant-based protein, unless it was what was causing the funny aftertaste. Otherwise, the plant-based protein did not play a negative role in this lasagna. It was mainly the noodles. The noodles were just a gummy mess. Both lasagnas had their own faults and just simply weren't very good. So I'm going to give the Stouffer's lasagna with meat and sauce and the Stouffer's meatless plant-based protein lasagna both a 3 out of 10. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.